You're watching Fox and Friends, the #1 morning cable news show in America.
Thank you very much, Colonel Hunt, and welcome to Studio E, live in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. A very busy morning.
It sure is. That's why we're going to get right to that Fox News alert for you. The man murdered American sniper Chris Kyle and his friend Chad Littlefield found guilty by a Texas jury. Fox News' Casey Stagel is outside the county courthouse there in Stevensville, Texas, with the breaking developments there. Casey, what can you tell us this morning?
Elizabeth, good morning. I can tell you emotions ran very high inside that courtroom yesterday. All of the family members of the victims crying and holding hands as the decision came down. But there was one person that was notably absent from the verdicts being read, and that was Taya Kyle, the wife of Chris Kyle, of course. She stormed out of the courtroom during the defense closing arguments, slamming her hand on the door as the defense attorneys hit on, once again, whether Eddie Routh's mother should have disclosed her son's previous violent past to the Kyle family, which she did not. Taya has been here for every single bit of this trial. In fact, she was the very first witness to take the stand. Watch her describe the last time she saw her husband alive.
I said, hey, maybe make sure that this guy knows that Chad can be trusted 100% so that he's comfortable saying whatever he wants to say. He said, oh yeah, no, I definitely will. And then just said we loved each other and gave each other a kiss and a hug like we always did.
The jury, comprised of 10 women and 2 men, deliberated for only about 2.5 hours last night before rendering the guilty verdict for the 27-year-old former Marine. Eddie Ray Routh was also sentenced last night. It was an automatic life in prison without the possibility for parole, guys.
All right, Casey, live in Texas. Thank you very much.
All right, Peter Johnson Jr. joins us right now to give some instant analysis. Peter, it's not a surprise. We knew he murdered him. He admitted it. Yeah. Caught on tape. All this stuff's been released. Did anything surprise you about what went down last night?
You know, I thought it might have come in just even a little quicker based on the testimony that we heard in the case.
2.5 hours.
Obviously, the decedent, Mr. Kyle, Mr. Butterfield, well-respected people in that community. There's always a residua of support and affection for victims of crime. And I thought that on a lot of counts, the defense counsel didn't make the point that they needed to make in terms of insanity. The point was that the defendant had, in fact, suffered from delusions in the past. And I was talking with a colleague here earlier today. There should have been, in my view, not to second-guess the lawyers, a cavalcade of witnesses, doctors, to talk about the fact that they believed that he was insane.
They brought one witness, correct?
Yeah, and I read the testimony, and in some ways it was persuasive. In other ways, it absolutely wasn't persuasive.
Peter, do you think the jury, and you say you thought they might have come back even quicker, do you think the jury, going into the jury deliberation room, they thought to themselves, if we say he's not guilty, he's going to wind up going to a mental institution, and someday he could actually be set free. And we don't want that to ever happen.
It depends on how well they know the law. I believe jurors want to be fair in every setting. And if they're asked whether they're going to be fair, 99% of the time they're going to be fair. But if they're aware of that and someone says that to another juror, yeah, they have a consciousness of that. And they say, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want another person, another family to be victimized in this way.
Peter, you know, it's interesting because they did have a lot to go with, the defense. They say that his own sister said that he was been haunted by demons his whole life. He was afraid to leave with his own 4-year-old. That they said that the prosecutor's psychiatrist said he didn't have PTSD but showed signs of schizophrenia. And Kyle flat out tweeted out himself, this guy is straight up nuts.
It's straight up nuts. And they talked about that, in the closing here. I'm not making the case that he was legally insane. I am making the case, though, that there were a lot of potent issues that could have been mobilized.
And red flags.
But it raises a lot of issues. What is the Veterans Administration doing with mentally ill veterans? They're not doing a good job. There's too many suicides. There's too many homicides. There's too many untoward events. And so, again, the Kyle family has been victimized in this process. Sure. They lost their father and husband, and at the same time been vilified by people I believe to be insane, and many like Jesse Ventura.
Many in the military community furious that someone like Routh could use PTSD as an excuse
absolutely.
for murder.
And you're absolutely right. And that becomes an issue for a jury. Not only are they looking at the insanity issue, if they invalidate the insanity issue and they get mad at the defendant that he's a fraud and a fake and a phony, and he's trying to use it, especially when he really didn't see action, that can have an effect.
Okay, next, people are looking to the appeal, and the defense already said they're going to appeal this. Do they have a good case? I mean, they made it clear, we don't think we can get a fair trial here in Texas, given the fact that the biggest movie in the world right now is American Sniper, all about Chris Kyle.
No, and I've heard some commentators talk about it. I think that's a phony issue. If you're a respected member of the community, if you're a famous person, if you're a servant of the people, as Chris Kyle was, and the other decedent, then you should be entitled to the same measure of justice as quick as everybody else. Justice delayed is justice denied.
Well, delayed was exactly what Taya Kyle's testimony was to the American public, unless you were in that studio, in that courtroom. Now we get to hear what Taya said was her last conversation with Chris Kyle. She knew something was different this time. He's taken out dozens of troop members who was coming back from battle. Not this time. Listen.
Just didn't seem like normal Chris when you talk.
No, because normally going out there, especially a place like Rough Creek, it's beautiful. He feels really good about helping somebody. Usually he's making their day, and he knows it, which is what, you know, that happened earlier. He thought that guy sounded really excited to go, and so he thought he was doing a good thing.
So he sounded a little irritated when you talked to him mid-afternoon.
Yeah, it was very short, and it wasn't like short like, hey, you're interrupting a good time. It was short like, I wish I could say more, but I'm not going to because there are people around.
Yeah, she wasn't in the courtroom at the time because she got up during closing arguments. She was upset that they invoked her husband's name when they were talking about the mother of Eddie Ray Routh. Should have mentioned, by the way, he is unstable.
And the defense was making the case that we talked about at one point, Elizabeth. What was the culpability, the prosecution thought, in terms of the mother's conduct of Mr. Routh, allowing him to go with Chris Kyle on that day? And so the defense was trying to say, listen, even the prosecution had an awareness that he shouldn't have been out on that particular day based upon his mental illness. I mean, it's a time for healing for this family today, though.
Marcus Luttrell was in the courtroom. A fellow SEAL team member said this on social media. He says, justice served for Chris and the Littlefield family. To Eddie Ray Routh, you thought you had PTSD before. Wait until the boys in the TDC find out you killed a Texas hero.
Also, the governor of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott, tweeted out, justice, Chris Kyle's killer convicted of capital murder. Jury didn't buy insanity defense. Hashtag American Sniper. Hashtag Chris Kyle trial.
And Kyle's life was about the quality of mercy because he was trying to tend to a weaker brother of his. And this is what happened. The jury has spoken. They said he's not nuts. Go to jail. Do your time. You killed a great, great American hero.
Two of them.
All right.
Two of them. That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.